Yes, it finally happened. Air, or Ascent Infinite Realm, finally launched in a closed beta. Granted, this is the Thai closed beta, but it's more or less the same game we're going to be getting when it finally launches over here. I managed to get a key to enter the closed beta and take the game for a test run. My wife, MrsStix, however, was not as lucky. I saw that a friend of mine, Cryy, which if you don't already watch him, you're missing out by the way, as the dude does some amazing shit, had gotten into the closed beta as well. So I hit him up and asked if he wouldn't mind my wife creating a character on his account so we could play through together. Naturally, he was cool with it, so we managed to capture footage of 2 different classes. Now, I want to preface this by stating that to get into this closed beta specifically, and all future Thai closed betas, you will need a Thai IP, so a VPN is pretty much a must. I use NoPing personally, and I actually have a link to that in the description. They offer a free trial of the service, so if you want to play Air right now, or you have plans on playing a future closed beta of Air, then go ahead and sign up with a link in the description. There are currently 4 races in game as of this moment: the humans, the elves, the Ain, and the orcs. Each race, with the exception of the little furries, have both male and female genders. I don't know why they opted to not include female furries, but whatever, missed opportunity. All the races look beautiful, I gotta say. Even the female orcs look amazing, and I'm not traditionally a fan of orcs after having played Lord of the Rings Online, the Elder Scrolls series, and World of Warcraft. There are 5 classes available at present: the 2-handed hammer-wielding warlord, the stave-wielding elementalist, the wand-wielding mystic, the dagger-wielding assassin, and the gun-wielding gunslinger. I know the mystic is a healer, or at the very least has the ability to heal, because, well, I mean, just looking at it, it looks like a healer. Then my wife played it, so I know for a fact that they can heal. I'm not sure if there's a holy trinity of tank, healer, DPS in this game, but I can safely say that every class, including the mystic, is capable of pulling out some really good damage. I was very surprised by the character creator. I went into the game and figured it'd have a character creator akin to something like Black Desert, as that was the impression I was given based off of the information thus far. However, the creator was more like a hybrid between Black Desert and Blade and Soul. You don't have nearly as much creative control over your character, but you're still capable of making a character that looks and feels yours. You had the option to grab specific pieces of your character, such as their cheeks or their eyelids or lips, and you can move the slider left or right, but that's pretty much it. Body sliders were a little limiting as well. I don't know, for a Korean MMORPG, when Korea pushed out games like BDO and Blade and Soul years ago, I guess I just had higher expectations, especially since this is from the people that brought us Terra. Graphically though, holy crap, I was shocked by how good this actually looked on Unreal Engine 3. The backgrounds, the clouds, everything. Air is supposed to take place primarily in the skies, so I was curious, for lack of a better word, what would happen should I attempt to jump off the ship, the land mass, whatever it is that we spawn on. Suffice it to say, yeah, the game does not stupid-proof anything, so if you're an idiot like me, see ya. At first glance, I thought the game looked like Arcade? Like, seriously, does this not resemble Arcade to you guys? If Arcade were released in 2019, it's just, I don't know, it's crazy the visual resemblance it has, to me at least. After a solid 15 to 20 minutes, you get your first flying mount, and that's where the main focus of the game kicks in. Aerial combat, aerial exploration, aerial activities. The flight animations, at least based off of what I saw from my pudgy little dragon, were a little stiff, and my character remained completely still while casting various skills with the odd arm movement here or there. So my hope is that they work on aerial combat animations just a little bit more. At the same time though, I am very well aware that the game is still in beta testing, so I know that, what we see right now isn't final. Regardless, the aerial combat was quite a bit of fun. I've long since been a fan of mounted combat in games, so being able to mount my steed, albeit in the air, and mow down my enemies is a nice change of pace. Plus, it'll make kiting a lot easier, or at least I thought it would. One thing I didn't quite understand was that skills that required my mage to stand still also required my mount to remain still while I was mounted on it. What this meant was that essentially I couldn't use my mount to circumvent the limitations of my class with regards to casting, which granted is perfectly understandable, but It's also a little bit disappointing for me, since I main mage. I wanted to fly at high speeds, just wind blowing through my hair, on my trusty dragon, lighting everything and anything I want up with giant meteors. Also, quick note, please be very well aware that your mount actually has stamina. You can only fly for a certain period of time before you have to either A, dismount and continue on foot until the mount regens its stamina, or B, use a stamina potion. Actually, I didn't realize this, and my mount's stamina dropped down to like 8 at one point, and it almost flung me to my death in the middle of nowhere. Combat, both on land and in the air, was unusual. It's not bad, but not what I actually expected from the game. They'd advertised air as a tab target MMORPG, but then they showed trailers that made it seem much more action than tab target, so I wasn't really sure what to actually expect. After getting a first-hand feel though, I can safely say that, like several things thus far, air utilizes an interesting hybrid of both action and tab target combat. It's not traditional tab target like WoW or Final Fantasy XIV, but it's far from action like Black Desert or Terra. I can't really put my finger on it exactly, but I can happily say that the combat is a whole lot better than Blast Online's was when it released. Plus, I'm a fan of tab target combat, as I play games like Perfect World, World of Warcraft, and Final Fantasy XIV for years at a time. I can definitely see this being a turnoff though for some players that have gotten used to fast-paced action titles. This applies to my mage though. It could very well be more action-oriented, I guess, for melee classes. I can't say, as I didn't really get the opportunity to play one, and my wife MrsStix, she went Mystic, so yeah, she had the same general playstyle as I did. For the most part, the game played just like any other MMORPG. You follow the story, you pick up side quests, kill monsters, loot items, and progress to the next NPC who asks you to do more or less the same thing. But then again, that's to be expected, as that is the basis for the genre as a whole. One thing that took me by surprise was the autopathing. You can simply click the N key on your keyboard and be autopathed to either the quest target or the next NPC in the quest chain, just like in a mobile MMO. I'm not a fan of autopathing. I am definitely not a fan of auto combat or autoplay in any capacity, so this is definitely a little jarring to see, and it has me slightly disconcerted. Like, I understand autopathing isn't that big a deal, as it's not really autoplay like combat or actual completion of quest objectives, but I remember what Revelation Online was like with its autopathing. You'd see hundreds of players just going around in a linear path alongside one another from quest giver to quest giver to quest giver, the majority of them tabbed out while watching something on YouTube or on their phone. I get that you're not required by any means to make use of it personally, but it just takes a little away from the game, because you know a lot of people are just going to autopath everywhere, disregarding everything else along the way. But I mean, you know, if that's what the developers had intended, then by all means, let's make our PC MMORPGs more like mobile MMORPGs. If we do it a little at a time, then I guess maybe people won't notice. I don't know. Are any of you guys bothered by the autopathing feature? I know it exists in some other MMOs, but I don't know. I'll probably end up using it just so I can work on the channel while leveling, but I'm curious of your thoughts. There is a very prominent story in the game from what I've experienced along the way from level 1. Granted, I only made it to around level 10, I think, before stopping there for now, because the game is only available to play for 8 hours per day, and that 8 hours begins at 5 AM for me. And I like to sleep in. Everything we did was tied into the story in some form. Even the side quests. To proceed with the main story, we're required to also hit up the nearby side NPCs and do their tasks before we could continue. There were tons of cutscenes and a whole lot of voice acting to go with it. If the dub is anything like Terra, then God help us, because Terra's dub made me want to cut my ears off. I hope they keep the option to swap the voice acting back to Korean, or they just leave it in Korean. Like Blade and Cell, some of the fights, some of the dungeons were instanced off and difficult. I almost died in my very first instanced off encounter because the dragons really screwed me over. My blink skill just kept teleporting me to their AoEs, and it kept making it impossible to dodge. Backtracking slightly though, the story also takes place in instances. Like, not solo instances, but instances that are still closed off from people that aren't up to the same point in the story as you, or furthermore, ahead of you in the story. This means that you can do the story together with other players, but if there isn't anyone at the same point as you, it's unlikely for you to come across anyone else. So overall, what did I think of Ascent Infinite Realm? That's a good question. Thankfully, after Revelation Online did so poorly and I was largely let down by the grindy nature of Black Desert Online, my expectations for MMOs drastically decreased. I went into Blessed with some excitement and was very disappointed. So I went into Air thinking that it would be an alright MMORPG to spend some time in between patches for Final Fantasy XIV. And yeah, that was about what I had experienced. But do note that this is my first impression of the game and only of the very first 10 levels. As I continue deeper into the game, as I experience more of what it has to offer and hit endgame, it could change completely. But from this closed beta, I can safely say that improvements need to be made. Thus far, Air doesn't particularly stand out in any form. It isn't a bad MMORPG, but right now, it isn't a good MMORPG that I can be excited for either. It's pretty basic, it's pretty generic, but that doesn't mean that it will remain that way, especially as you make progress through the game. I know some other MMO tubers have a different opinion of the game to me, and this is why you should always watch a variety of people. You get different opinions, different views. We cover different areas and are both impressed and disappointed by a different range of topics. So yeah, am I excited for Ascent Infinite Realm? Kinda. It has the makings of a fun game to waste time in. Do I believe it'll compete with something like Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft? Hardly. In my honest opinion, it'll likely replace Blade and Soul as the free-to-play MMORPG that everyone plays for, I guess, like a year or two until something else comes along to take its place. But I could be wrong. Maybe South Korean MMORPGs can sustain themselves long term. Maybe they're capable of breaking the mold and surprising us. Maybe they're not even pay to win. Maybe this won't be pay to win. Who knows? Either way, I would love to hear your opinions and thoughts on the game. I'd also love to hear where you think the game is going, what direction you think the game is going to take. If you think the game is going to be good or bad, what do you think of each of the topics I covered? And do you think you'll be playing it once it launches? If not, what are you looking forward to instead? Anyway, guys, that is it for me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more goodness like this, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.